Hello, everybody. Welcome to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together and talk about the events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co-host, Zach. What's up, dude?
Nothing much, man. We are on episode 17 of Shooting the Poodoo, and we've been live longer than 15 seconds. So, in typical Jeopardy fashion, the answer is 23. Bang. What is the number of states in which our show can consent to sex in? Yeah, almost half the country. It's still not 18. Fun stuff. Guess where all the states are?
Probably in the South.
Mostly. Even Hawaii figured it out recently.
Yeah, I mean, but back in the day.
Yeah.
And also, like, as is the, it's an interesting thing, but as is the kind of general intellectual thread that ties the show together, like, that's kind of where we're going too. And so I always make jokes. It's like, oh, I had daughters. And I'm like, anytime a guy seems interested, like, I'm going to have a conversation with him and his family about how many cows they're going to give me. Like, like.
Damn, I was going to say goats, but yeah.
Same fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do for me?
How many goats you got?
Because that's, in my future, that's what it kind of looks like,
Yeah. Selling children for goats. I get it.
No, just, it's not going to, yeah.
Society is going to
look a lot more like it did 150 years ago than it does right now.
Yeah, society is going to backslide for sure.
For sure.
It's inevitability, unfortunately.
But let's not fall down those kinds of rabbit holes. I was going to say dowry holes.
Oh, that sounds bad.
I know, right?
So much worse than rabbit holes somehow.
So our show today, going to do a quick clip from Canadian Prepper, and then we are going to get into some other things, including the dam collapse in Ukraine, and then finish up with some other news bits on homelessness and Star Wars.
Finish off strong with some Ahsoka.
And we're starting late because it is summer, and my children have a later schedule.
Yeah.
And they had a friend drop in like an hour before dinner, and we're just like, sure, you can stay. Yeah.
Parents are just like, we really don't feel like feeding this kid. Can you take care of it for us?
Yeah, I don't think that was it. I think daughter was driving mom kind of crazy, and she's just like, let's go see if Sophia can do something. Because apparently she lost our phone numbers.
Oh, gotcha.
So at any rate, yeah. Let us begin.
Let us indeed.
So forest fires are just like lungs. They kind of breathe a bit. They'll rage for a while, and then they'll kind of die down. They'll rage and they'll die down with the wind. And that's exactly what happens. So a lot of people are making clips of this because you see it rages, it releases these massive toxic plumes, and then the time of day, it goes into the middle of the night. Things cool down a bit. The sun isn't blaring, and then it slows down, and now it's speeding up again, right? It's more thick, toxic smoke is being emitted. So it goes in these cycles, and people are clipping this, and they're saying that, oh, look, they all were started with space lasers by the government at night because they want to charge us more carbon taxes. Look, guys, we all know that the government is incompetent, and they're incompetent. They're not smart enough to do those sorts of things. You can have a situation where we are, in fact, having this kind of detrimental effect on our habitat, and we're also trying to be exploited on the other end. Those two things can coexist. It's simple. You can have ecological catastrophe, human-induced, and the lying, thieving government at the same time trying to get you on the way out. These two things can coexist, so stop acting as if one thing must be a total, complete, utter fabrication just because we have corrupt governments trying to exploit these catastrophes.
Yeah, man. So you must have felt some way about that.
No, it's just, I think, giving Canadian Prepper credit where credit is due.
Okay.
Is really why I wanted to share that.
I kind of like the next bit that you have because it's like credit where credit's not due as he shills his own product.
Oh, the next part. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and earlier in the episode too, he says something like fucking outrageous. Oh, like people that are breathing this wildfire smoke are like just like a couple days worth of exposure to the heavy smokes enough to kill you. And it's like, I've lived through a lot of forest fires, bro. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
You're more likely to develop like respiratory issues either then or especially later in life, you know, like you damage tissue.
Right. He kind of, like scarred lung tissue doesn't grow back. And so you end up with lowered lung function for every little damage that happens to your lungs. But like this guy, what he's about to do, if we even choose to play it, I don't know, man. It's
No. This was the stopping point.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
Oh, does he talk about mirror safety masks?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he sells them on his store. And the people at Mira he's interviewed and stuff, they're really cool.
Yeah.
To
me though, it's just like, okay, cool. This isn't like an affiliate link or anything like that. Like, the place that sells it.com/Canadian Prepper. It's like Canadian Prepper, my store, I'll get it to you. And I'm just like, this just reminds me of like a lot of other, big names where it's like oh
Alex
yeah.
Jones.
Huh?
Like Alex Jones.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it, but I'm glad you did because Alex Jones and fucking all the other like bad dudes that are just like, oh yeah, my show is really all about creating angst and anxiety so I can sell shit.
Yes, he does clickbait, and there is a lot of anxiety, but like at least what I understand of it, like he started his web store like way before the YouTube channel.
Okay.
And they were already a successful business. The YouTube channel has benefited him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The guy's got fucking
and he doesn't really
views.
Yeah, he doesn't really peddle specific products too often. And sometimes he does like, oh, here is a bomb shelter builder, and interviews the guy, and they talk about him, and fully recognizing like, hey, my audience, like no one's going to be able to afford anything like this. So here are, actually solutions that are within the reach of most people instead of building like, $100,000 bunker or whatever.
Right.
At any rate, I wanted to give credit where credit was due. I thought his interesting, like clearly understanding ecology well enough to be like, yo, dude, like forest fires breathe, like just like everything else. Like they have a pattern, and that pattern should not be construed to mean it was started by space lasers. And that whole bit about like you can have something severe like climate change and also have a corrupt government, and climate change isn't an excuse for corruption, right?
Right. But it is kind of the result of it.
What's that?
I said it is climate change is the result of corruption, though.
In some ways, I think
a lot of various agencies that knew what was happening, hiding the data for decades. Yeah.
Oh, you mean like fucking Exxon hiding the data?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they're self-interested. I don't think that's corruption.
Seems to me like they're one and the same when what they're doing affects everyone else.
It's not the same as what he's referring to, which is people who believe that like there's no such thing as climate change, and it's just created to force people to eat bugs.
Bugs are pretty good, y'all.
And also, like they're just talking about growing insect protein. Like I'm investigating growing insect protein for the express purpose of feeding fucking other protein.
Chickens. You can say we talked about slaughtering them sons of bitches.
I want to eat insects. I just want to pass them through a chicken or a pig first.
Dude, mushrooms, man.
And in a pinch, I'll eat some fucking bugs, bro. I'm not like above it. In a pinch, I'd fucking eat a person. It's not even a question. Like some people are like, I'd have to ethically think of that. I'm like, nope. I don't. If I'm fucking hungry, sharpening my fucking boning knife or whatever.
Steve, like, it's only been an hour and a half. I know, but I'm hungry. You know how I get when I'm hungry.
It's true. Anyway, credit where credit is due. It's good that you tell your people that climate change is real and phrase it in such a way that's like, hey, those two things are possible at the same time.
Yeah.
So we talked about fire, and there of the five sacred elements. Fire. That's how we should structure the show, and just like rebrands completely. I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
Pardon me. Let's talk about water.
I gotcha.
So preface this: a dam collapsed on the Dnipro River.
Yeah, I don't know how to
Sometimes I
pronounce
hear
it.
it pronounced without a D. I looked up the pronunciation and I could not see it written out in the whatever the phonetic alphabet.
Mhm.
So or whatever you know what I mean, like the way they break it down so you know how it sounds.
Yeah,
Not the
a
proper
pronunciation
spelling,
guide.
but the phonetic spelling or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't find that. It was just audio clips, and I wasn't in a
Mhm.
position to listen to an audio clip. So I'm like, fuck. But anyway, I think it's Dnipro, or I've heard it also be pronounced like Dnipro
Okay.
or something like that. Anyway, it's a big river. It's a major river that flows through the country, and the dam collapsed. And so the first clip is from a representative from Ukraine, and imagine what their opinion on the matter is.
Let's find out.
Now, look, this was a harvester combiner. And so what I'm trying to say is that trusting Russia is futile. They lie on a daily basis. Plus, our president said it very clearly. It was not just possible, logically, for Ukrainian side to do anything with this dam because it was blown up from inside. And, it was under Russia's control for the last, half a year. So, and we have intelligence that the Russian terrorists have been taking explosive and preparing for this for quite some time. So
So he's saying they put explosives in the dam, and he said that they've controlled the area for the last 6 months, and that is factually incorrect.
Oh,
They have not controlled it for the last 6 months. In fact, they controlled it, as you'll find out in a later clip, a little bit more truthful statement about it. They withdrew from that area. In like late last year, either December, January, November, something like that.
Yeah, but did
they haven't actually occupied it for the last 6 months?
Occupied, okay. But yeah, I mean, if no one
or
else,
he said controlled is what he said.
Yeah, but I mean, if no one else steps in to occupy it while you're gone, if you were the last to take it, hey, if no one else steps in to take your shit, you were the last to control it, you still own it until someone else comes in and takes that shit.
It's a front line, so it's like a war, and there's a line in the war.
I get it.
They withdrew their line. They weren't controlling it, meaning,
But if no one else comes in, they were the last person. That technically it's still under their control.
No. Ukrainians and Russians are fighting like this, and sometimes the line's over here, and sometimes the line is over here, but they're always like this.
Yeah. But the thing is, if no one's actually at the dam, it sounds like you're saying, okay, cool, the Russians didn't have personnel at the dam, they didn't control it. And I'm saying, did the Ukrainians have personnel at the dam? If not, then either no one controls it, and it's a neutral zone, because it's not just a straight line. There is neutral zone, no man's zones, etc. As opposed to... Go ahead.
Fair enough. My understanding is that it was under Ukrainian control, because if Russia withdrew, then Ukrainians retook control.
But without personnel there, you don't control it. It's just not under someone else.
No, I'm not talking about controlling the hydroelectric infrastructure. I'm talking about control in terms of coercive management of a space.
Yeah, but if you don't, so feet on the ground. Is that what you're saying? Feet on the ground, or just no Russian feet means Ukrainian control?
I don't understand.
How do you not understand what I'm saying? There's a McDonald's. We both want to go there. You go to the McDonald's and you are there. You are in control of the McDonald's. You later leave. I don't ever show up. Do I control that McDonald's now? Just because you left?
McDonald's isn't a fucking front in a war.
I get it, but I mean, without personnel on the ground, you don't control something. You hypothetically,
if they withdrew,
right?
They used to be there and have boots on the ground,
right?
And they were
removed. The Russians
6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Then
you moved Ukrainian boots on the ground, though.
What?
You took Ukrainian boots and put them on that ground afterwards, though, right?
I don't know which unit was assigned there. All I know is that if Russia withdrew, it was under Ukrainian control.
How does that make sense, though?
Because it's their fucking it's Ukraine, it's their territory.
It wasn't for a while, though, is what I'm getting at.
All right, I'm done arguing with this. I don't understand.
How do you not
understand? In the ocean, it's different.
So you're saying that just because legally the last controlling person is Ukraine, the moment that Russia leaves, they no longer control it.
Russia doesn't control it? Yes, they can't. If they don't have any troops at the dam, they can't place explosives in the dam, is what I'm saying.
Okay. So this has to be a Ukrainian attack on their own people then.
No, we just need to watch the second clip, which I already said explains a little bit more about this. I just didn't want to say what the next clip says.
Okay.
5-minute digression.
Inside.
What?
No, nothing. I just
They know now and knew long before that Ukraine will come after them, that Ukraine will be winning this war. This is why, as an act of desperation, they've resorted to this terrorist attack. And this just underscores, why the international community has to stand with Ukraine, because we are dealing with a deranged, debased terrorist regime.
Right, but if I may, there are questions about...
I just wanted to, that rhetoric stood out, because that's the kind of stuff U.S. mainstream media says. It's just he's a lunatic. He's not in control. He's unpredictable. All of these things, when, if you actually listen to the dude speak, sounds pretty fucking rational to me.
You're saying this Nova Kakoshka, or wait, no. Who's the guy talking? Yuri Sak. You're saying he sounds reasonable?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I'm sorry.
I'm so confused as to what your stance is on everything we've watched so far.
No, my stance is listen to this guy who's a representative of the Ukraine calling Putin unpredictable, insane, brutal motherfucker and all this stuff, completely unhinged, right? That's how they try and paint him. He's fucking crazy. And I said, all you have to do is listen to Putin speak. And he sounds pretty fucking rational.
Yes, and we've covered that.
Yeah, we've covered that. And so he sounds pretty rational. And I was just pointing out that this narrative, and it's they're losing, that's why they're doing this, which is also a fucking lie. Right?
Right. I mean, winning or losing, blowing up a dam is a pretty good idea, because you destroy everything downstream.
You would. Keep playing. I love that she just calls his ass out too.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Why Russia would attack the dam, given that it has now been forced to evacuate its own troops, evacuate civilians, and the flooding could affect water supplies in Crimea. So it doesn't look in one way that this is in Russia's interest, does it?
These are the narratives that the Russian propaganda is planting in the Western audiences as well. But I have just answered your question very, very clearly and simply. Russia is losing on the battlefield. Russia is in panic. The terrorist regime is falling apart. They are suffering setbacks on the battlefields in Ukraine. They have a civil war uprising beginning inside Russia. So they are in chaos. They are in panic. They are paranoid. This is why they're using these terrorist tactics.
Yeah, this guy to me just seemed like he was full of shit the entire time.
Well, he's what was his title?
Propagandist. It was advisor to Ukrainian defense minister.
Yeah. So he's a fucking press secretary.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a bullshitter. But anyway, I really love that she's just how does that make sense? Because they kind of seemed oh, fuck, and had to do all these other things and react to this happening. So how can you say that they did it? And he's because they're crazy and they're losing.
Right. And so they're paranoid, etc., etc. Yeah.
It's just kind of a really, it's just funny that I was having a conversation. So we tried to skinny up on what had happened between, and we'll have to have a phone conversation actually.
Yes.
There was some crazy shit. Anyway, I was having a conversation, and I mentioned I had access to the internet when I was in a particular spot. So I was updating and flipping through and reading daily news or whatever. And I saw that the dam had been exploded, and I was talking to them, and I was like, oh, this happened, and it's fucking going to be pretty terrible over the next couple of weeks. And they spouted almost that. Well, it's crazy because Russia's committing a genocide in the Ukraine. I'm the fuck? Where did you fucking hear that? That's not
Right.
fucking mainstream media, I guess.
I haven't heard anything about a genocide.
No, I mean I've heard the rhetoric, but like it hasn't been taken seriously because it's not a statement that was made to be taken seriously.
Mm.
Like it was hyperbole, and like once people are like, "Oh, a genocide? Let's look for the evidence." There's no fucking evidence. You're just like, just trying to basically dehumanize your enemy.
Yeah, well, in like everyone wants these nice clean wars and such, and I've never quite understood it. We have these like rules of war and conflict and Geneva Conventions and all that. And it's like really when it boils down to it, the shit hits the fan. None of that matters. Or people are going to burn down farms because it hurts the enemy. People are going to destroy bridges because it hurts the enemy. Like none of your decorum matters. It's just going to be a whole bunch of people blowing shit up in order to get gains for their side.
Word. Let's watch a different clip from a different guy offering commentary.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of what's happening with Ukraine's offensive, which I guess in the greater context of things could be the defensive, but what's complicated now by the impact of the flooding and the greater than expected resistance from Russia?
Yeah, we'll take the bridge issue first. Both Moscow and Kiev immediately seized on that once it became clear that what had happened, and violently accused the other of terrorist attacks, etc. But I think when you look at the preponderance of evidence, the most likely cause of this is actually the weakening of the bridge from the HIMARS attack by the Ukrainian side last November. Actually, they damaged it when it was still under full Russian control, and Russia was actually on that side of the river, and then they withdrew in November. The thing has been leaking for months, and it appears that it just finally gave way and broke the top of it. Actually, the superstructure underneath is actually still intact, and things could get worse if that goes out too. But the reason I say that is because you see that the military units on both sides of the river were neither side was prepared for this, and they've both been scrambling to get out of the way. So that means that no one knew it was coming. And I think they're both just trying to take advantage of it in the information sphere to their advantage.
So
now, it is having.
Go ahead.
It is having an impact, though, on the offensive or on the process of the war, because it washed away a lot of mines on the Russian side and also their defensive positions. They've had to relocate backwards, but it's complicated the Ukrainian side because now then they can't launch some of these cross river operations over the Dnieper that they had potentially planned, because now then the far shore has been expanded and now turned into a morass. So they can't land there now potentially for many weeks to come. So it's basically taken the southern part of that fight off the table for the time being and put all the focus then on the next part around the Zaporizhia area, where now, as you pointed out, the offensive seems to have been kicked off.
So it sounds like moving the front northward, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah, basically it rendered like a big section of the front line. Like, I mean, because like operational military planning like takes so fucking long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you have something like that, like you're not really able to like do anything with it. It might be weeks or months before the situation is known, right? Like what the roads look like. Can you drive a tank through it? Blah, blah, or the bridges up, all that other stuff. And then also like how many people are like now refugees who got stuck there in the flood, right?
Yeah.
And things like that. Other kinds of complications that make waging war difficult. And so then the focus of the fighting moved north, right? Like the focus. But it's just like, again, Occam's razor. It's something we come back to a lot, which is again why I thought it was appropriate to share the Canadian Prepper clip and where credit is due, because like this basically like was it Russia destroying it and then just acting like they didn't know what happened, like to fool you, like because they're that lunatic? No, they have a functional military that's operating on functional military doctrine, and like sometimes they fail and they adjust their doctrine, right? Like,
yeah, well, and it would absolutely make sense that if you're having issues down south, you make south impassable and force things into an area where you have more control or better odds of winning. And so even if it wasn't intentional a destruction of the dam and not just the result of something that happened a year ago, then why not assume? I don't know. To me, in a time of war, why not assume intention rather than accident?
Yeah, I hear you there, but like also they tried to say Russia blew up Nord Stream, which made absolutely no sense. And then it turns out like pretty much everybody was like, yeah, I guess it was us. Like, they still deny it publicly, but like, there's enough people on record being like, yeah, this is pretty much the absolute most likely thing to have happened is the US blew it up. Or now I guess they finally admitted it, but then said the US was aware of it, but was carried out by Ukrainian special forces. Right. Which is like
under decree, no doubt.
No, they probably just talked to the Ukrainians and were like, we'll give you X amount of weapons and you have to fucking take the heat for it.
Yeah. Make the shit happen.
And they're like, we don't care because as a regime, we're not gonna be around. Like, you can pin the blame of anything because we're not gonna be here because we're not gonna win this fucking war. I mean, basically.
I mean, all or nothing. Yeah, either we.
I think it's a big grift. I think that they keep saying things like, "Oh, he's a terrorist," like, and they're losing because if everybody, if the people, the politicians, and military experts and contractors, etc., like they want it to continue because they're making lots of money, and Ukraine is happy because like their elements of their ruling class are like fucking taking a lot of the resources that are going there and then getting rich off of it.
I mean, I have to imagine that they also own stock in Raytheon, et cetera, et cetera.
They might.
Yeah. I mean, like nothing stops a foreign entity from owning stock of a country that's based in the US. Like that's capitalism, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So at any rate, carry on. I
Carry
just thought that was interesting because it's like also like, yo, bro, like not only were they not expecting it, but like they lost a lot of assets. I don't think it was this clip, but it was a different clip I watched. Like they had whole defensive fortifications knocked out. And so my understanding, and this is what I heard several days ago when it first happened, was that the Ukrainians did it to eliminate the defensive positions because Ukraine was an offensive line. So they're a little bit more flexible, but when you start laying down defenses, like you have to hold that space.
They might have been stretched too thin, basically.
They had minefields and all that other stuff. And so when I first heard it happened, the speculation was that Ukrainian forces blew up the dam to eliminate the Russian defensive line in preparation for. It's possible that that is true. I do think that this explanation, it's like, because that the dam got hit when Ukraine was attacking Russia at the dam. And that checks with something that I heard, that the reason for the withdrawal, I heard someone correlate the reason for the Russian withdrawal is because that dam got damaged. And so they pulled back. And then that was like kind of like near the end of their offensive push at the very beginning. And then they withdraw to a clean defensive line, dug in, and then it became a war of attrition that fucking has been pretty devastating for everybody involved. At any rate, I do think it being damaged in previous warfare, and then, I mean, this is what, June? So I'm not sure how the mountains look around there, but my guess is that this is when like snow melts and shit, right? Like, so my guess is maybe like high water level, spring snow melt water levels probably put additional pressure on damaged infrastructure. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, a lot of melt causing a lot of troubles.
So what are we doing now?
We are watching clips from a video by a channel, Second Thought. Like them, watch them. Good shit. Good production values.
To some, continuum of care approaches sound great. That is...
Wait, no. One, two.
So what happened? How is Finland so effectively reducing homelessness? In 2007, the Finnish government started a national Housing First program. Housing First is a philosophy that argues that to make progress on homelessness, particularly chronic homelessness, you need more than temporary emergency solutions. You need permanent housing right out the gate. In other words, housing is the starting point, not the end point. The way Housing First programs work is pretty simple. People experiencing homelessness receive independent housing immediately, without having to first fulfill mental health, sobriety, income, employment, or other requirements. Once they're housed, support services are offered, not imposed, and over time, the newly housed begin to finance part of the cost of their housing to the degree that they can afford it. It sounds pretty intuitive, but this is very different from the more common continuum of care or staircase approach we're mostly using. In continuum of care programs, homeless people are expected to make progress on any mental health or addiction issues they may have, and to pass a certain standard before being housed. In this system, housing is at the top of the staircase. These individual changes that these programs require are the sorts of things that are incredibly difficult to address when you are still contending with the anxiety of not having a home, possibly still sleeping on the street. In these continuum of care programs, only once you have demonstrated some change, which we should keep in mind is incredibly difficult to achieve without housing stability, do these programs graduate you into housing arrangements. First shared housing, and slowly over time, independent housing.
So yeah, we talked about Utah in the past.
Yeah, we did.
And how they had done a similar program and had
I think
resounding
this was
success.
experimental, right? It didn't have permanent funding.
It didn't have permanent funding. It was a resounding success. They found it saved several tens of thousands of dollars per person.
Per person. I was going to say, I
right.
thought it was in the many millions.
No, per person. One of the other ones I was reading about, I was on the order of, I think, like 30,000 a person each year.
Easily.
So, yeah. And so a very simple, relatively cheap thing, occurring.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I didn't know if our audience was familiar with it, so I figured I'd give it a go. I talked about it in name only previously, and so I wanted to point out some examples.
Yeah, I like how they pointed out the continuum of care stuff, because that's a phrase that
Right.
you hear a lot, because like HUD funds that.
Right.
So really, like, since most cities are unwilling to try and innovate, or you have cities like, I think it was fucking San Francisco is getting sued, I think I saw, because they implemented like oh, you don't have the tents up on the screen, but these kind of like uniform tents and spaces. They made basically tent villages, and in like parking lots and shit, and they found out the city spent like $700,000 per fucking spot. Per tent spot. So per person housed, they spent $700,000 for a fucking tent.
Right, for a year.
So people are fucking pissed, because it was basically, they'll probably, once they do discovery and shit, probably find out it was corruption with the contracting company.
Very likely. Tends to be the way. This is the way.
Yeah. And and that's, again, like going back to Canadian Prepper. Like, it's possible to have corrupt government that's self-dealing and also have a legitimate fucking housing problem due to structural issues.
Yeah.
Like...
Right. They can both exist at the same time. You can have shitty people and shitty policy.
100%. So let's talk Ahsoka, bro. Or did you have more of this?
There was more. Just a couple more.
Oh,
it's like
okay, great.
Minute and 15 or 2 minutes 15 seconds.
Perfect. BRB.
Compare that to Housing First. In the initial study on Housing First, back in 2003, a randomized trial of the two approaches decidedly shows the strength of the new program. Around half of the initially homeless group were accepted into permanent housing, regardless of their eligibility according to other programs, and they were then offered tailored and optional care for their individual circumstances. The other half went through conventional channels, and at the end of the trial, the results were clear. The Housing First group spent more time in stable housing, less time hospitalized, and results carried over for longer than when homeless people went through the continuum of care path. Within just 6 months, Housing First had virtually eliminated homelessness in the experimental group. It was a massive success. That first study was in New York, and inspired by its promising results, the EU ran its own pilot programs in 5 European countries with the same outcome: secure, long-term housing stability. And now that it's become the official national policy of the Finnish government, we've seen just how much good this can achieve.
So yeah, man, there we go. I should go there. Reliable results for all the people that were enacted into the program. Like, I know I can look out in my town and see that that is not what's happening for your average homeless person. And we definitely spend a whole lot of money. If you recall, I was talking about how we're set to spend, I think, $450,000 on a souped-up truck, no doubt with truck nuts, in order to bust the homeless population of Fresno over the head in style and luxury for the police. And that right there would take care of, or that right there could be done with just the savings from, what is that, 30, 60, 90, about 10, 15 homeless people. So, hey, you know.
How much money?
$450,000 or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah. That was significantly less. I think, didn't we say the last time we got to, oh yeah, I didn't even fucking update. We took so much time off and never even been like, hey, welcome back, blah, blah, blah. Just like jump back into the grind, being like, fuck, we got to do a show.
Fucking shit to do. We're late. Let's go.
Shit to do. No, I think we were discussing last time or the time before about the Patriot batteries that there was one that was destroyed, or they said,
yes.
Oh, no, it didn't get hit. Oh, yeah, maybe it got kind of hit and oh, it's just damaged. It's fine. You know, like,
yeah.
And I think it was like $550 per missile in the battery. So a full battery is however many, like I think it's more than 12. It might be like 18 or something.
Yeah.
I have no fucking clue.
I seem to remember last time you said it was like over 500,000 for the platform and like 400,000 for a full load.
Oh yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then for just the launcher, not per missile.
Exactly. Yeah. So this truck costs about as much as a missile launcher.
The truck to just fucking sweep up fucking home.
Or was that millions?
Or fucking Fresno?
Yeah. Or was that millions? Wasn't giving two of them like $1 billion? So they're like $500 million a piece.
Yeah, that's
okay.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh man,
it was like $500 million each, and like
So this truck is like a tiny fraction, but yeah, still terrible. Anyway, I got one more from Second Thought.
Cool.
We can move on to Ahsoka finally.
Housing first is still cheaper than not housing people or walking them through an ineffective continuum of care program. Not only are people housed through Housing First covering part of the cost and are more easily employed, but housing people saves money in the long term on comparatively costly emergency hospitalization bills and absurdly expensive policing, which both go down when 1. People's needs are taken care of preventatively, and 2. They aren't exposed to an expensive state apparatus that has criminalized existing without a house. Given all this evidence,
I mean, it's again to tie back to the conversation with Schmechtenberg and fucking Nate Higgins, but like the nth order effects, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I mean that's the obviousness of it to some of us, right? Like, hey, like it actually saves a fuck ton of money. Mm-hmm. It's just that the money that goes towards these individuals is fucking hidden in a half a dozen bureaucracies.
Right.
You know, like, but it fucking costs a lot of money to society broadly. So Housing First makes a lot of sense in that respect.
Yeah, there's not much left of the video. He goes on to ask, basically, you're probably wondering why aren't we doing this, and then talks about
it if you'd like.
Oh, it's like all 2 seconds. I mean, sure, go ahead.
You're probably wondering why aren't we doing this? To be fair,
that was it. It's just that one sentence. But I mean,
where you had intended to stop it.
That's where I intended to stop.
That's great. You're wondering why are we doing this? Good fucking question.
Yeah. Well, and then he talks about housing as a commodity. I didn't want to include the rest, just to not.
Because we've talked about the issue quite a bit. Yeah. Dude. So like, it makes a lot of sense, and we've made this argument, and it's really not that expensive unless you're, of course, like engaged in some kind of corruption thing, which is the whole point of like trying to do it grassroots. But the thing is, it's like grassroots organizations don't have the resources.
Right.
What we need is a a nonprofit or a government to be like, yes, we will commit $100,000. Like, let people who have interest in issues come up with proposals and have a steady funding source for those small organizations to compete to deliver real results, because that'll expand the conversation being had about solutions, and more importantly, about how to implement solutions in the most economically benign way, in the most socially benign way, and possibly leverage for ecological benefit in terms of like co-locating people and services and learning the care economy and everything that's going to have to come after industrial society, right? Like,
Right.
so there's all these opportunities, but like the apparatus, the state apparatus, and its various subsidiaries down to the local government is just a nested orgy of fucking ruling class elements, elements of the ruling class with different, slightly differing agendas, but sharing the overall desire to remain in the ruling class, right?
Yeah.
And so that they'll make the rules in a way that maintains their status.
Right. And he goes on, he talks about housing as a commodity, and something I thought was interesting is if you did decide to do a housing first program, and you're a city like Fresno, you got the construction people basically, puppeteering all the people in charge. The mayor is owned by a bunch of
Developers.
of developing companies, right?
Yeah.
It's the same way in a lot of places, because that is a guaranteed source of income no matter where you live. People need shit built. They're going to make money. And so I could absolutely see, not only if you were trying to buy up enough housing or property to build housing, that you would eventually run into people that are just like, well, we know you need it, so here's the jacked up price. And then you have to put into your thing like, no, it's going to be fair market value based upon yada, 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 which is still an ever increasing price. Because like if one person can sell something at an inflated price, that makes it so that every other property, I can now reference that one and say, look, this one place got that much money. That must be fair market price, or at least near it. And so even though you might not get up to there, you'll get closer and closer and closer, and then up and up and up and up and up. And that's the cycle that we're caught in with housing right now. Is our current system of appraising value of houses is reliant upon what's sold recently. And the fewer places there are and the fewer places that sell, the more likely you are to have big sales like that ever driving the price up. And so like that's going to be an issue when you're talking about, buying and trying to house people, is just getting big enough plots of land where you can put in like massive, apartment complexes, and getting past all the people and their NIMBY ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I was trying, when I heard you wanted to do this, I was looking for an article I read earlier this week. I want to say it was in Hayward, which is like would you call Hayward the East? I guess technically the East Bay. I consider Hayward more the South Bay because it's closer to San Jose than Oakland.
I'm not sure.
Hayward's closer to San Jose than Oakland. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And so I consider like Oakland East Bay. The Bay is just the peninsula and maybe parts of fucking Marin County.
Yeah.
But Hayward's way down there. It's like Fremont, Hayward are at the southern part of the San Francisco Bay. But they're on the east side of the bay, because the bay comes to like a little nipple. It is. It's a little upside down titty. A sagging titty.
Yeah. I would definitely call them South Bay. If you consider San Francisco to be mid Bay, then they're definitely South Bay. Anyway, for those of you not familiar, yeah, exactly. For those of you,
it's funny because they called it North Bay all the way up to fucking like Healdsburg or some shit like that, like past Santa Rosa. And I'm like,
I mean, basically anywhere that you can reasonably commute within 2 hours, they're like, that's the Bay Area.
Within 2 hours, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whoever wants to commute 2 hours.
That's how much my dad used to drive to get to Hayward. So yeah,
my dad used to drive 2 hours a day, not 2 hours each way.
Oh yeah, no, this was 2 hours each way.
That's,
and like as I'm an older person,
fucking insane. So
yeah, I recognize that now.
A couple guys at when I was at Dover. One was down in the radar facility, and one was up in the tower. He's a fucking rad dude. I should probably hit him up and just see what life is like for him.
Mhm.
At any rate, they both worked contract at a tower in Maryland, but lived in Delaware or in Dover because they both retired about the same time out of Dover ATC. And they were doing like private contract work in Maryland until they could get a DOD slot at Dover
Okay.
or a DOD slot somewhere else nearby.
Mhm.
And they actually wound up they split a like camper van. And they
Down by the river.
They asked to schedule themselves so the shifts to overlap as much as possible, and then they commuted together. So they just slept in the fucking parking lot.
Yeah.
And they also asked for like, I want to work an day shift the right after I finish an evening shift. So they only have the minimum time off required by law, and then came right back in.
Yeah, that way they didn't have to drive back and forth.
Shifts so that they could just commute in, stay there for a couple days, and then come home.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty fucking common, man. My boss's wife, worked in the Bay Area from Chico, and so she would just a lot of times. I mean, they had enough money, so she flew out there a lot of times. But other than that, she'd drive and just stay for like a week or two at a time. I also think she might not have liked him, but whatever.
Yeah, I could see that. Like even Starhawk, who I was up at her ranch this last couple weeks I was gone. Or week, I guess it was just a week, right? I was supposed to be gone for longer, but one of the classes I was going to attend got canceled due to low enrollment. So I didn't need to stay as long. Anyway, and also there's some other reasons. We'll talk offline. It'll be fun.
Not until I get another drink.
Yeah, Starhawk has her cabin at the ranch, and then she also is in like a co-housing type thing in San Francisco that she's like rented space in for fucking decades.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a co-housing thing, and she just has rented a space that's rent controlled, right? Like, so
nice.
She's just been paying the same rent on that spot, so she has a place in the city. So when she wants to do things in the city, or she's traveling, or like coming back from traveling, she's close to the airport, has a place to land, hang out for a few days, rather than trying to drive 4 hours to and from the airport.
Right.
And she's a writer, and she's connected to cultural scenes, and she's lived in the city like I think most of her adult life, and had the ranch since the mid 90s. So a couple like 20-25 years she's been splitting time between the two. So
yeah
except COVID that put her there a lot. But anyway, yeah, so people sometimes have places in the city like that.
All right.
What is this?
Onto Ahsoka, I say. With
that's
great
not
gusto.
Ahsoka, that's Mandalorian season 3.
Well, yes, it is referencing it, but I also like to point out that if you look at the screen, you started off where I am over here. And I started off where you were, and through a series of trying to avoid overlapping people's heads and moving us, we have swapped places. Hello.
Oh, I'm watching in the dashboard, so I'm looking at the images, not the smaller image.
Oh,
of
look
what
at the
stream is showing.
I gotcha. Yeah. If you look at the OBS feed, we swapped places.
Yeah, I never really paid attention. Yeah, I think you're right. You used to be on the left. Anyway, this from Mandalorian season 3 was a great scene because I think as far as CGI aliens that used to be 2D animation,
not so bad.
They did a really fantastic job with that.
And this
making
is
him like larger than human, but like not like grotesquely.
Right. And this is going to talk about how the crew from Rebels is now coming to live action. Like it or not, fuckers.
Yeah, the ghost crew.
Yeah.
So we just got our first look at a very important character to the Ahsoka show, Zeb. And honestly, although the most recent episode of The Mandalorian was sort of mid for me, it got me very excited. I truly think the Ahsoka show could be the best thing to happen to new Star Wars canon. To me, it's pretty genius. For one, it brings...
What?
I said except Andor. Like nothing will
Oh
ever
yeah,
be
yeah.
Andor.
Well,
Like
it's
nothing.
just so different from what people are used to in Star Wars that it's going to be hard to even compare it to anything else.
It's so good.
It's very good. Yes, I agree. I
Yeah.
I want to know who disagrees, and I want them in the
There
comments.
are
I want them
people.
to explain their
Oh,
position.
Boring. They're never going to explain their position because their position is juvenile and they're wrong.
It's boring. I want more pew pew. Never mind. Get out of my comments.
Brings a threat that has proven quite compelling in the past, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and puts it against some of the most interesting and well-liked characters
Space
all in
whales.
one place. Obviously, the characters from The Mandalorian are great, but for me, Star Wars Rebels is just unmatched when it came to creating a family, a crew that you just loved following episode to episode.
There's something to be said about the family and the crew, because
It's-
as Fast and the Furious has taught us, it's all about the family.
Yeah, and you were talking about family, but I remember also, like, wasn't it like Zhivago and Hondo both came through in the final episode of Rebels?
Yeah.
Like, so their family was bigger than just their crew. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they had an
also all the
extended
low
family.
lifes that they fucking hung with, and that was one of the cool things about that show, is because like they're like, technically what we're doing is illegal, so we're gonna like associate with you, and in a lot of ways they judge them, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
especially Hondo. They're like, stop being naive, Ezra. Hondo's a fucking shyster, right? Like,
Yeah.
but in the end, like
But he's
those
so cool.
criminal elements ultimately believed in the cause, whether
Yeah.
they were willing to be public about it or commit to it. They did, believe in the cause,
Yeah, absolutely.
which was awesome. And the Purgle
For
came
those
to
who-
rescue.
Yeah, the perk. Yeah. That was a weird. I was not expecting that one when I started watching the show.
I did as soon as the Bendu was like, I see your death, suffocated by 1,000 tentacles or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And at the end of season 3, the Bendu foretold Thrawn's fate.
Yeah. Okay.
Bendu was another great fucking character in that show.
Yeah, the whole show was really great.
The show was great. Yeah, and the
Watched it
Inquisitor in the
twice,
first
and I-
season. Like this second season was cool because they brought Ahsoka back and she was Fulcrum, and they were it was kind of them being like, hey, we're not just a cell by ourselves, we're part of a rebellion.
Yeah,
so there
that was a
some
good
episodes
episode.
where they were trying to they're like, we're burning too. I thought the building of the rebellion's mythology and just details and elements of it was interesting because they're like, hey, we're burning, like, A-Wings have hyperdrives, they can jump to battles, but like we're burning way too much fuel. We need to get like a fucking carrier for starfighters.
Right.
And so that was like missions they did, was like trying to build their fleet, which I thought were fucking rad. They stole Y-Wings basically.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, who hasn't done that in any of their, Star Wars RPG campaigns? Like building that crew is like, one of the most fun things to do, unless you're already in like a military campaign or whatever. But yeah, like building them and everly, climbing up the ladder of cool shit. You're like, all right, we got, fighters. Oh, we got a big ship that they can dock on. Oh, we've got an even bigger ship. Like, it's always just fun to build that, little thing.
For real. Sorry, continue.
Aren't familiar with Star Wars Rebels, more so than the Clone Wars, it really is about the developing relationships among the Phoenix crew. At the end,
I don't know where he gets that. Phoenix? Do you know that?
So
I know there's
the
Phoenix
ship
Squadron.
was called the Ghost.
Yeah.
The little shuttle that docked on it was called the Phantom.
Yeah. And they were part of the
They're-
Phoenix Squadron, though.
Their code names amongst each other were Spectre.
Mhm.
And then when they joined the rebellion in season 2, they were part of Phoenix Squadron.
Okay.
And so when Mon Mothma gave the declaration where all of the different rebel cells came together to form the alliance to restore the Republic,
Okay.
then they were Phoenix Squadron, which was, another military unit like Red Squadron or Gold Squadron.
Yeah, 12 or so ships probably. Okay.
Yeah.
the big cliffhanger is Ezra's missing, and it's a real emotional moment when the crew's achieved victory, but they've done so without part of their family. I also think Rebels was really genius in how it managed different personality types. Zeb is
Great
comical
fucking
without being
Who? Her.
Agent Callus. And his story,
Yeah,
their
yeah.
story arcs are so good. It's like people are like, oh, The Mandalorian season 1 and 2 was great, and I was like, dude, but I don't watch kids shows or whatever, and it's like the characters in Rebels it had like better arcs than almost any other character.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and Callus was amazing because ultimately he had to depend on someone that he hated.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
In theory, only to find out how little.
And it was the strength of the family, right? Remember that conversation when him and Zeb almost fucking died. Like that was such a great episode because like there didn't need to be. I mean, there was a big monster, right? That was the action. Was like, how do we work together to escape the monster? But like they had really solid story arcs that kind of came together there, and then they made it a moment that changed Callus. And you don't know that Callus changed because he went back, and the end of that episode ends with like him realizing how cold the Empire is and how no one gives a shit. Didn't even notice he was gone.
Right. I think right there you do have the change in him. Like he has that sad Keanu moment where he's just like, oh no, nobody loves me over here. They would have let me die because it would have saved them some money.
Right, exactly. And and Zeb was confident the entire time. He's like, no, my friends are already looking for me. I know
they're gonna come get us.
Like because they'll, they're reliable or whatever.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
You got any more?
Being a joke himself, Chopper is one of my favorite droids in Star Wars history, if not my favorite. Then you have the maternal tones of characters like Ahsoka and, to a much bigger degree, Hera. I'm excited to see the crew reunite after all of these years to finally rescue Ezra and also to come together against...
Or will they rescue Ezra, or is he already beyond redemption?
I don't know if that's be some Dark Jedi or something.
Yeah, man, it'd be a waste opportunity if they didn't.
You think that he's going to be like the Disney new canon version of fucking Sabayoth? Yeah.
Who now? Okay.
No, the fucking Dark Jedi that teamed up with Thrawn.
Oh, Sabath. Okay.
Yeah, didn't I say Sabayoth?
You said like Sabayoth or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I've always just heard it Sabath.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. It's only ever been in writing, so. Yeah. So nobody knows how it's pronounced.
Do you think that they're going to kind of twist Ezra into that role?
It'd be fun, and the writers definitely like reusing as much as they can, without following it beat per beat. So yeah, could definitely be something along those lines.
I think they've already. There's speculation that the movie that Dave Filoni is going to begin writing and make 3 or 4 years from now, which is going to be like the whole Mandoverse fucking Avengers moment or whatever.
Oh, God damn it.
I know. It's
Mando's a symbol.
It's so campy. And that's why I think I love Andor so much. I'm like, I don't need fucking, guess what? How much Marvel I've seen? Like
I'm going to guess
none,
like 3 or 4 of them.
I've seen like the early X-Men in like the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
None of that counts. None of that is the MCU. That's outside of the MCU canon for the most part. I don't
understand.
None of that is part of the MCU canon at this point. It's all done by other. I think X-Men was Fox, and that Spider-Man you're talking about was Sony. They appeared in a crossover movie with the Spider-Man, but it's not like they were canon. They were considered to be alternate universes. And the X-Men are only just being added in right now. And I don't think any of the shit that's happened up till now is going to be considered canon.
But what about Deadpool?
No. No, I don't think Deadpool's ever going to be allowed in the canon. Like, he might have crossovers. What's the fucking
point of making stories if they're not canon?
Because they're not canon to the MCU. They're canon to themselves. Like,
I thought that it's all Marvel.
It is Marvel, but you have to understand that they were owned by different groups for a long time. And so, like, Disney's going to want to distance itself as much as possible from most of that stuff as soon as they can, because then they don't have to pay royalties anymore. But, they now own the X-Men and Fox and all that shit, so that's done. They can do whatever they want. They could include it if they wanted to. I don't think they will. But Spider-Man is still a weird, like, joint ownership where... I think the rule is like Sony can make it. They have to give money to Marvel. But that's about it. Like they can do whatever they want. But then if Marvel wants to feature Spider-Man, they then have to go and pay Sony. So Sony can release its own movies, but if Marvel, like all the not Tobey Maguire, who's the guy? Tom Holland. Tom Holland, is that right?
Yeah.
Him. Every time they want to do that, Disney has to pay Sony. So Sony just kind of gets to sit back and be like, yeah, give us that money, bitches. We know you're good for it.
Fucking, and we've talked about on the show how ludicrous IP
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Let's finish this clip because we're right at an hour, so we should wrap.
We are, yeah.
The incredible threat, which will be Grand Admiral Thrawn. If they do the Rebels crew justice, and if they do Thrawn justice, I think this is going to be a truly unforgettable show, especially when we have characters like Boba Fett, the Mandalorian, and many more that we can now draw from. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down below. So we just...
That is an interesting scene right there. I watched a video. I didn't.
That's the last episode of Rebels. That's like the last scene.
Yeah. It's very interesting though, because I watched one where it's like, oh yeah, this is like basically after that weird thing where she was on the planet with the brother and the sister that were like basically the light side and the dark side, and the sister died, and they transferred the power over to Ahsoka, and now like Ahsoka is the beacon. Yeah. Like she's the sister who embodies to the light side. So it's like, they could do so much with her, but will they? Disney, don't drop the fucking ball on me. Like, let her be a weird, like, mystical character.
Yeah, some people have already said that. They're like, yeah, anybody that says Ahsoka's going to be good is going to find out that like 3 episodes of the fucking 3 out of the 8 episodes are going to be about other people.
No, don't do that. Like, have Ahsoka. Like, I know that in all the previews and everything, she's fought with her lightsaber and all that crap, and I'm cool with that. But like, it'd be a good opportunity to, like have her develop and stop using the incredibly lethal, lightsaber, and start using something more akin to like a staff like this. Just have her become more in tune with the Force and less in tune with the Jedi. The video I watched was like, by all measures, she's a Jedi, and I'm like, no, the Jedi is a dogmatic religion.
Sect.
Yeah. If you don't believe in all their things, you're not a Jedi. So she's not a Jedi. Don't say that she is. Like she rejected it because she knew that path was bad. Like it led to corruption. It led to, laziness. And so like, she was like, fuck that shit. And so I would like to see her abandon the lightsabers, the traditional weapon of the Jedi, and do something else. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I look forward to the show. I think people overhype it. And like, so almost every show that visited characters we already knew, people got fucking mad about it.
Yeah.
Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, how they treated fucking Luke Skywalker and Leia.
Yeah.
Like Han, right? Like,
yeah.
They're like, they fucking destroyed every fucking character we loved. And like, you're like, oh yeah, let's fucking have a really exciting show about characters we love.
It reminds me of the 1986 Transformers movies where they killed off all of the existing Transformers, and they did like interviews with the show's like writers, and they're like, oh yeah, the whole time like we just thought this was getting rid of the old product and bringing new. But sure enough, there were a whole bunch of new Transformers, and it's like that almost feels like what Star Wars 7, 8, and 9 were, is they were just killing the old guard so we could introduce new characters and have new action figures and sell fucking, what the hell were the little birds?
But people didn't want them.
Penguins, or what are the little penguin birds?
They started
Those
with
guys.
P.
Yeah.
No, I want to keep wanting to say pogs.
Porgs. Yeah. I mean, basically, it just seemed like those movies were killing off the old guard so that they could make way for the new, sell a bunch of Porg, merchandise, and then discover that baby fucking or Yoda sells way better, and just not give a shit about anything but that.
Everybody love fucking Baby Yoda. Everybody still
yes.
My partner still fucking coos when she sees Baby Yoda, and I'm like, he shouldn't have been in The Mandalorian season 3. He should have been training with fucking Luke for 1 season.
Yeah.
Well, and you could still put that episode that wound up in fucking Book of Boba Fett, where he goes to try and like speak to him and gives him fucking Beskar, or gives him the has the thing forged and gives it to him. That could have been an episode like mid-season.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing is,
of
like,
Mando season 3.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, from everything we've seen, from like all the children, becoming Mandalorians, and from fucking Din Djarin, like, becoming excommunicado, and then getting back in. It's pretty easy to become a fucking Mandalorian. It's really hard to be a Jedi. You should have been a Jedi first, then been like, no, this isn't working out for me, brah. I'm gonna go, be with Papa Din Djarin, and fucking go
Or
over
at least
there,
trained him to
wear
the
some
point
armor.
where he had, and he seemed to be trained to the point where he had control. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
I
don't even think
mean,
he used offensive maneuvers when fighting the fucking Royal Guard.
no,
In
he just
the
kind of
last
jumped around and let
episode,
them
he
burn
just used
themselves.
defensive, like push the staff away, make the guy tumble or whatever, slip out of the
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah,
And like part of me is like, did they just do that because they thought it would be fucking cute
probably.
of him hopping around being like, or
Can't
were they
catch
trying
me.
to be like he doesn't use it as a weapon?
I don't know. Maybe that's the key. Maybe not using the Force as a weapon keeps you on the light side.
Maybe we will never know. I'm not nearly as excited as some people. You know why? I'm excited for the Acolyte.
Yes.
I mean, I'm excited for Ahsoka because it's the next fucking thing coming out, and I do love all these characters.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to put that shit on a pedestal because every time people do, like, they're disappointed.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like, I'll just watch it for
don't-
what it is. If it's good, I'll be like, yeah, awesome, it was great. And if it's not so great, I'll be like, it was entertaining, but I'll probably not watch it very often.
I think a lot of
You
people
know?
that are disappointed are the ones that like watch literally everything and overanalyze everything,
Mhm.
and are like, well, this is what logically should happen, and when what they think should happen doesn't happen, they're like, well, that's just I hate it. It doesn't do what I thought it should do. It's like, well, fucking get over yourself. You're not the writer. Go spend years, like earning your chops in the
Honing
fucking
your
writing
craft.
community. Yeah, honing your craft.
Spend some time
earning,
honing your craft and then get back to us.
yeah.
Like, fuck off.
While you were off studying the blade, they were writing stories for the masses.
Right. So today we talked about some fires, we talked about some floods, we talked about some houses, and we talked about some Star Wars. And when all said and done, like, it's a fucking crazy world we live in. And I think the escapism part of the Star Wars really gets me. And
Yeah.
I do think the good storytelling is just so critical to moving forward. I don't have the time to go into it now, but this sacred water workshop I went to, we did some stream restoration, a lot of stream ecology and observation work, which was really awesome, learning how to read landscapes and see how forces interact in a space by the way that the evidence arranges itself, like a little erosion gully here, some exposed roots here, kind of thing. And then we did some ritual magic, learning how to craft effigies and instill in them some magic that we could use for beneficial purposes and stuff. It was fucking amazing, and it's nice to have some kind of grounding. And I think for me, Star Wars grounds me to all the fucking crazy, the nuclear war and the fucking climate change and the insane people who think that like 5 people control everything, but then the fix to that is to kill the trans people and the black people and put the Mexicans back on the
so
south side
different
of the
from
border.
us.
Right, like, it's just fucking absurd. And this is the world we live in, because when liberty dies, it dies
With thunderous applause.
See you later, buddy.
Later,
Peace out,
everyone.
everybody.
Ending the stream now.
3, 2, peace.
All right.